And, a couple of years ago, I hadn't met John except for a few times fleetingly. And I had heard about him. Rick Marshall gave me some background on him. We wanted to reach out to Palos Verdes and have more of a connection with our club because we had only just acquired Palos Verdes as our territory with our club. And with our board and general meeting, we elected him Republican of the Year. And that was good. We nominate only and we elect only political individuals for that nomenclature, Republican of the Year. He has since progressed in many ways in benefiting Palos Verdes and Rancho Palos Verdes. And it's nice that we're connected with Palos Verdes and Torrance. Those are the two powerhouses in the South Bay. One's more of a bedroom community with 5 different cities, and the other one, Torrance, is also an industrious bedroom community. It works out politically very nicely with cooperation. Most of the time, it's conservative cooperation, and that's really necessary. I found that John Cruikshank has the ability to do that better than most, and that is where I am impressed with him. Recently, he produced his email publicity, and there were items in there that I am delightful to read about. It's forethought for the future. It's progression that we want to see as conservative, industrious, capitalistic, free enterprise, hard-driving individuals to benefit our society. And that's why I'm particularly delighted to welcome him here with his campaign. And if any of you have a checkbook with you, or he can tell you how to donate otherwise, I've produced a check. It won't bounce this time. I'm kidding. But, so thank you very much for considering donating to his campaign. He's got the giant to slay. The most corrupt politician in District 4 for the Board of Supervisors, Janice Hahn, locked us down, refused to listen, refused to meet with people for 3 years. And that's dictatorship beyond belief.
Were you surprised?
I was not surprised. By the way, Gary Mlinick here is the associate director for CRA Senate District 24, and he's going to be going to Bakersfield as a delegate within our interest too, and the South Bay Republican Assembly representative too. And with that, I'm going to skip over back to my introduction to Mayor Pro Tem John Cruikshank. Thank you, John.
Does this hold it?
No, it won't.
That does not, okay.
No, it does not.
We'll make it work.
Is that yours?
No, it's fine, it's got a cap on it. All right, well, thank you. So this is actually my first time I've given this campaign speech, so it's not memorized yet. So when you see it, it'll be much more refined, like in a month or 2 from now. And I'm also, I think if you've gotten my mailers, I do talk about that I'm going to be conducting a benchmark poll. And the reason for doing that is that I have a lot of ideas, and I'm going to tell you about my ideas, but at the end of the day, politicians, it shouldn't be about the politicians' ideas, it should be about the people they represent's ideas. And so what I'm going to be doing is going out to all the different cities that all will be representing, and I'm going to be asking them about their thoughts and understanding what's most important, because I want to narrow it down, since it's the 4th district, I want to narrow it down to 4 issues, the core 4 issues, and I want to stick with those 4 issues. And so that I can continue, that will be my message. All right. So of course, I love being here at this group. We do need to add a PV sticker up here or something, because the name is not yet on your literature, so that's a little bit, but it's great to be a part of the group, and I did appreciate winning that Republican of the Year. So those of you that don't know me, my name is John Cruikshank, and I am running for the Los Angeles County Supervisor 4th District Board, which has 32 cities and 13 unincorporated areas. And then if you don't know, as was mentioned several times, I am Mayor Pro Tem. I was first elected to the City Council in Rancho Palos Verdes in 2017. At that time, because we skipped over to even years, I only got a 3-year term. I was supposed to run in 2020, but was fortunate enough to not have any opposition. It was actually the first time in the history of our city that someone ran unopposed, so that was nice. Although I do like campaigning, I also run a company, so that was nice. So in addition to being Mayor Pro Tem in Rancho Palos Verdes, I'm also the chair of the South Bay City Council of Government. If you're not familiar with that, it represents all 16 cities within the South Bay. My background, actually, I was born in Inglewood, and I lived in Westchester through the 1st grade. They were starting busing at that point, and my family said, no, we're not gonna, we lived right next door to the grade school, and they were gonna bus me to another city. They're like, this is ludicrous. You go think about liberal ideas gone amok. I mean, they haven't just started today, they started
way back.
A long time ago. It's just become to the point where they're the only ones in charge, so everything that happens is nuts. So we moved to El Segundo, great school district there, and I kind of migrated my way south. So I've lived in Manhattan Beach, I've lived in Long Beach. Well, kind of Long Beach is a little bit further south. And then I also, we lived in San Pedro, and then we moved to Rancho Palos Verdes about 15 years ago. I'm married to my wife, Jennifer. Her and I are celebrating our 30th year anniversary this month. So she's great. And she's really the brains behind all the operations. So when I write a speech, she reads it and says, no, you can't say all those things. You gotta reword it this way. So it's kind of nice, because she's like the thinker, and I'm more of the talker. So it's kind of a nice relationship. We kind of complement ourselves. And then we have one child. His name's Sean. He's graduating from Arizona State University in April. So that's pretty exciting. He'll be home for spring break soon. So I'm a 3rd generation LA County resident. I, like all you, probably care very deeply about the county and America and all the things around us, and you just look around and you're like, wow, what's going on? And you look at since 2020, when the pandemic hit, and at that point, we had the incident with George Floyd and BLM and Antifa just running amok. And it was when they took seize of our country like that, and we were looking for our leaders, our LA County leaders, to do something and to speak for us, and they just didn't. I mean, literally it became clear that our supervisors were speaking for the Democratic Party. I mean, that was it. They didn't really care about LA County. They cared about their message and their approach. And the office of LA County Supervisor, probably as just like city councils, they demand nonpartisanship. I mean, you need people that are conservative thinkers, but you also need people that don't look through the lens of party all the time. I mean, if you're getting your message from the party of how you act and vote, then you're not representing people. You're just not. So in March of 2020, you might have remembered, that I was actually the one that was one of the first to get COVID.
Yeah.
I was the famous mayor from the party of Trump, the birthday party of Trump. And, I made friends with Patrick Healy at Channel 4. And that was a bad experience. I mean, it was 3 awful days, horrible days, three days. But at the end of that day, at the end of those 3 days, when I felt better, I realized, for the most part, most of us are going to do fine through this. But we do need to protect, obviously, the most vulnerable.
Right.
And none of us denied that, and all of us were unsure what was going on. But as we learned more and more, all of us were saying, well, we know that these masks don't work. And we know that, forcing people to get vaccines don't work. But what did we do? We just kept continually forcing people to do these things. It's this political agenda and the actions that turned out to be wrong that made me think, wow, I need to start thinking about running for even a higher office. The information about how harmful the school and park lockdowns were, and our county leaders never changed course, they never did. Even though they saw the rest of us suffering. And you think back, and people, it's still raw in people's memories. So for me, I'm running to represent the pursuit of more freedom, more government effectiveness, and at the end of the day, more fairness. I mean, that's it. So I love coming to this group, and I love America, and I want to only see great things for our country. But I also know that you and I, we're all frustrated. And we know that this one-party rule has got to change. It really does. And you always hear, well, good people never run. And I'm not saying I'm a great person, but I'm saying I'm a fair person. And I think I'm someone that can truly win. So, I talked to so many people that have left or want to leave California. I mean, think about that. That's nuts. And they want to leave because of a myriad of reasons. Whether it's the high taxes, or the high cost of living, the endless business regulations put on top of us, the assault on our constitutional rights, and just a sense of powerlessness. When you have an issue, who do you call? Nobody. And I think it was mentioned someone earlier about the all-female county board. Well, if that was an all-female conservative county board, I can tell you the victory lap wouldn't be that long. They would stop that immediately. So, once I'm supervisor, I promise to lead exactly how I've been my entire life, with fairness. I'll listen to people, I'll do a lot of research, and I'll make decisions based on what's right for all the county residents, not party politics. So, as it was mentioned, I'm not fooling myself. I mean, this is obviously a huge race. When I mentioned who I'm running against, or they say, is that Janice Hahn's district? And if she turned it out, I say, no, she's not. People are like, you're nuts. Well, maybe.
Somebody has to do
But good
it.
for me, good for us. Now we have someone to run against her, because everyone needs an
You're
opponent.
not nuts.
No, you're not. Somebody's doing it.
So the numbers are fairly daunting. There's 2 million residents, there's 1.1 million registered voters, 52% Democrats, 19% Republican, 22% declined to stay.
Okay.
So I've looked at the last 3 elections that Janice Hahn's been in, actually since she's been elected. This is going to be her 3rd and final term.
Thank God. Yeah.
And it looks like if there is an additional opponent that jumps in, then I'll need at least 330,000 votes during the March primary. But I believe if I can get 400,000 votes in the November general, I can beat her. So you start doing the math of 400,000 to win, 1.1 million registered voters. I think there's a lot of disinfected and disenfranchised people out there. Yeah, totally. I mean, you got to think, even Democrats that have half a brain can't think things are going right for them and their businesses and their families and all the horrible things going on. So I got to reach 800,000 people at least 10 times. I was actually at your last event, and I met Mike Netter. Some of you guys were here. He's with Rebuild California, and fast-talking guy. He doesn't think much of campaign consultants. My type of guy, kind of like him.
Yeah.
Yes.
Pretty amazing.
And So him and I have been talking, and he is pretty optimistic about reaching a lot of people for very cost-effective means and methods. We're going to be talking to his benchmark polling person tomorrow. I'm going to be talking to his social media person this week. So I think I'm going to be working with him. But I'm not too fast to just jump into one thing. I like to explore different avenues. I feel that the old ways of doing things just don't work. You know, I think knocking on doors is great. I think it's good for a photo op. I think it's good to show people that you're going to every community. But Mike Netter is someone that I think is going to really be able to help me get this 400,000 votes. Okay, so the district, it covers the southeast part of LA County, which includes Torrance, of course the 4 peninsula cities, Lomita, San Pedro, Long Beach, and then many of the cities that are between the 710 and 605 freeways. Jennifer and I, my wife, we've made a point to visit different cities in the 4th District every weekend, because soon I'm going to be doing a lot of meet and greets, I'm going to be doing a lot of initial kickoff campaign events in each one of those cities, and other critical campaign events. I met with a team of ex-mayors of Downey during this week on Thursday. Wow, what a neat city. You would never think about Downey, a very pro-business city. Those mayors, mostly Hispanic Republicans. 80% registered Democrat in their city, but they'd say if they didn't know your party registration there, they would vote for you because they don't like the Democratic politics. They just like to put a D after the name because I'm part of a winning team. Well, okay, good. So now we just got to reach these people and just have a contrast between my message and the message that my opponent has, which think in your mind what that message is and have fun with that.
Yeah, really.
I didn't put anything down because I couldn't think of anything. Oh, Bruce's Beach.
Oh God, how horrible.
Okay.
Bruce's Beach.
Yeah.
What a disaster.
Right. Well, these are the type of things that people remember too, and it doesn't. You know, it's another motivator for me. When I read that was one of the proudest moments of her political career, and there's more to come. Think about that. That is just so inherently crazy.
She's crazy.
You know.
Running on her daddy's coattails.
Well, yeah.
No, because her daddy was better than her.
Yeah,
You got a point.
good point.
So as we move towards the March 4th, 2024 primary, where the top 2 vote getters move on to the November general election, I plan to have an all of the above strategy. And I already have all the voter data from the GOP data center. I know that many of us had thought, and in the past the GOP admits they did a poor job. They're finally starting to get their act together in some ways. They did send me all the data, and it's free, and it's fantastic. And I was punched in a name of someone I knew, phone number, email, everything, address came up. This is great, so really helpful. And I hope to be the only non-Democratic challenger, although I hear that there might be a Democratic challenger for her.
I hope so.
Oh, good.
Well, the rumor is Cristina Garcia,
Okay.
right?
She would be
She was
formidable.
part of the Me Too movement, where you heard about the assembly member that groped the
A male staffer.
the male staffer. She also ran for
Male staffer.
Congress. So, but I do hope she runs. That'd be neat.
Yeah.
So the marketing flyer that Scott put together promised that I discuss the why having me as your county supervisor would lead to better times ahead. So I don't want to leave you without giving you the reasons why. And to best explain this, I think it's important to tell you what I would have done differently than what was done over the past several years. So first of all, with crime. We need to reopen our jails. And we need to figure out what's the holdup to not reopening our jails. And we need to start putting bad people in those jails. I'm all for trying to find help, to help people find a better life outside of crime. That's what we all want. But if our county DA is soft on crime, then it's we, the law-abiding citizens, who suffer the consequences. I would never support district attorneys like George Gascon.
Right.
And I would be out campaigning against soft on crime candidates. And I will support efforts to repeal laws that make things worse, including the Soft on Crime Bill AB 47. Homelessness. There is not a one-size-fits-all to this. First of all, there's at least 20% of the homeless people are severely mentally ill. And I'm in full support of mandating conservatorships and forcing those
Yes.
highest risk people into forced treatment.
That's what they do in Rhode Island.
These people desperately need medical treatment inside of a hospital, not on our streets.
Tent camps.
Another reason there's so many homeless is the high cost of living. Nobody ever talks about that. They always say we need more housing, but they don't talk about inflation and all the nightmares that they put on us. So as county supervisor, I've looked ways to reduce costs for all of us by eliminating useless rules and regulations to stop our vulnerable populations from ending up on the street. Housing. I find it quite interesting how our supervisors haven't done anything to help our cities retain local control, that they need to add housing in a way that only works for their own communities. Sacramento politicians are demanding that we build 1.5 million housing units in Southern California.
No.
And they work with this group called the Southern California Association of Governments, who basically are all in lockstep and looking at ways to force us to put in housing. As your supervisor, I will always fight for local control, because I know your city council and your planning commissioners know better than anyone in Sacramento. And we need to find a way to allow swift conversion of empty offices, schools, and government buildings into treatment centers and transition housing. This is my industry as a professional civil engineer, and I can help get all that done. Inflation. County officials need to fight for our businesses, not just to survive, but to thrive. I do not believe that county government should be interfering with the free market ever. None of our current supervisors have ever had a private sector job. None.
That's a big,
No.
that's a
No
big-
surprise, no.
So I've run a business for 30 years. I've signed thousands and thousands of paychecks, and I've put everything at risk. So I know what it's like, and I understand how important money is to everyone. So, but they're compelled to pass laws and regulations that continue to put upward pricing and pressure on goods and services produced here in the county, such as minimum wage laws, rent controls, and eviction moratoriums, and all these artificial market tactics that just don't work. They just make our lives worse. I'll do everything I can to fight for our businesses, along with an all of the above energy policy, including nuclear, geothermal, fossil fuels, natural gas, etc. Lockdowns. The lockdowns of schools, businesses, and government buildings should have never happened for so long. I can understand at the beginning, when none of us knew it to the extent, but once our supervisors saw what their rules were doing, and they should have just only had protections for the elderly and those with pre-existing conditions. And they should have opened society as soon as possible, just like they did in Florida and other free states. Instead, we see a mass exodus of people from LA County now. I would never have forced vaccines or masking, as it proved to be ineffective and caused tremendous harm. Transportation. One of our greatest freedoms is to be able to go wherever we want, whenever we want, but this freedom is always under assault. Why? Because one party hates the oil industry and fossil fuels and will do anything to promote anything but cars. Still, we spend more and more money on rail systems while ridership continues to decline. Once again, the government's fighting against common sense and our freedoms. I believe the market will continue to move toward cleaner emissions as it has been. But in the meantime, let's do whatever we can to reduce traffic. One of the ideas I have is let's build a Hyperloop system to get our shipping containers from our ports to the Inland Empire and off our freeways.
Yeah, good idea.
We have the technology, we just need to do things like this. And we can also promote flying drones and flying taxis to get vehicles off the road. I'm okay for things like this. If the market allows it, let's do it.
First two or three crash.
Well, I'll probably be in the first one to crash. My son's a drone pilot.
Oh.
So, and I also want to eliminate business taxes for people that work from home. We did this in Rancho Palos Verdes, and we did it to promote people so that they can have more home-based businesses. I think we should do it countywide. So earlier this week, the Daily Breeze had an article just out of the blue about how my opponent received an endorsement from Governor Jerry Brown. I don't know if you noticed it.
That should be a
Oh,
kiss
that's
of
too
death.
bad.
It was just out of nowhere. It's fun.
Train to nowhere.
First of all, I wouldn't want this guy's endorsement.
Yeah.
He's been destroying our state since he took office. And it's 100% disingenuous to endorse someone if you haven't spoken to any of their opponents.
What good?
When I endorse people, I always say I'm waiting to hear from all the other, who their opponents are. I might end up endorsing the obvious person from the beginning, but I always say to the people, look, I want to understand who your opponent is first before I just turn my back on them. So you're going to see a lot of endorsements. And what's interesting is I have a lot of political friends on the Hill and other areas. They're afraid to endorse me. They say that your opponents just gave me $1 million for whatever. I can't jeopardize that for my city. And so this is why the power of incumbency is what it is. You know, you have people that are fearful. I have people that are fearful of writing me a check because they'll say, will my name show up somewhere?
Yeah. There's
What's
no
your worry?
thing
I do business in the county. So I've already had quite a bit of that, and I've already had people that have not endorsed me or will not endorse me because they are fearful.
Ugh.
Sad.
Sad.
So anyhow, I think the politicians need to remember that the big checks that they bring your cities, that's not their money. That's your money being brought back to you. Wow, that's great, you brought it in a bigger check. So what, it's our money. It's nuts. So in closing, I can't thank you all for taking time. You know, you guys take a Sunday and you come out here and you listen to me, and I appreciate that. And it's actually a pretty good sized group today. I appreciate that. I'm going to be speaking in front of a lot of people. This speech is obviously going to get a lot more refined and it's a lot more focused. And so I appreciate you listening. This is my very first time I've given this speech. So I appreciate your patience with that. But I might not get all the endorsements either, but I appreciate this group endorsing me with its just goodwill and having me here. And I'm going to go and win the hearts and the minds of the 4th District voters, one city at a time. And I'm going to run a nonpartisan race, and I'm always going to listen to all the ideas that people tell me. And in the end, I think I'm going to do really well, and I'm going to end up winning. Thank you. And I'd be happy to take questions. Yes.
Okay, at the beginning, you said you had 4 points, and then you talked about a lot of things. I lost the 4 points.
No, and I'm sorry, I should have clarified. So I was talking about the benchmark polling, and I haven't done that yet. I'm going to work with Mike Netter and his group, and we're going to do some district-wide benchmark polling to hear from all the people. And then once I find out what's most important to the residents of the district, then I'm going to narrow down my talking points to 4 points.
Oh, the talking points.
Yeah, so today I gave you just kind of a smattering of my thoughts, but I'm going to start focusing those down to 4 key points. I haven't done it yet. I don't have them yet.
Okay, because
No.
I'm going transportation, I'm going inflation, and I'm writing them.
Yeah, no,
Thank
thank
you
you.
for clarifying
You
that.
bet. Other questions? Yes, Claude.
Yeah, about a month ago, I went to my podiatrist and he put on his face mask. So I said, doctor, why are you wearing a face mask? You know they don't work. And he said, you're right. But the county health commissioner, Barbara Ferrer, is making all us professionals, you know, the nursing, everybody wear those stupid masks.
Yeah.
And,
What?
and I said, hey, she's paid $560,000. I'll do the job for $280,000. I may not be an MD, but I have a CPA behind my name. I know what makes businesses run.
Step up.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. I mean,
That's the problem. And you guys appoint, don't you guys appoint the health commissioner?
yes. Yeah, no, the supervisors had the ability to get
Oh,
rid of
that
her
would
a
be
long
great.
time.
That might be a
that
good
would
one
be a
right
one.
there.
That was one of the first things that,
Yeah.
as a council member, I had written her a text message saying, you need to get rid of Dr. Ferrer. Yeah, she said, I just don't have the support, but she never did.
Well, you know, she's a proud,
Yeah, I'm so tired of that.
member of,
one of the SDIU, or one of the,
Sure, you.
SEIU.
Oh,
SEIU.
SEIU.
Oh, SEIU.
Service Employees International Union.
Yeah.
which is would be,
All right, so there was a recent vote by the Board of Supervisors to further limit the legal firearms that could be purchased and used. What's your take on that issue, and what are steps you want to take to restore Second Amendment rights, authorities, et cetera? What can you do as a supervisor?
That's a great question. So what Art just asked was about, they had an ordinance to ban 50 caliber and also the distance at which you purchase from safe zones. First of all, criminals don't follow the law.
Right.
So for us to be passing laws that do absolutely nothing, we're already the most gun control state in the union, and we have these horrific things occur. It has much more to do with the mental state of things than it does a gun. It's like blaming a car for a car accident. So what will I do? First of all, I would not be passing any more ordinances on gun control, and I also try to go back and repeal the ones that just are stupid
thank you.
and infringe upon our constitutional rights.
You're like the first candidate of any party that's actually
Right.
talked about that.
He's
That's
got common
excellent.
sense.
It's excellent.
Yeah.
Is any of the
And
other
that- and courageous.
supervisors-
Hold on, I've got a question here.
Thank you.
Uh,
Thanks, Gary.
Your opponent is a very proponent of SCAG, and if you read SCAG's plan for Southern California, they want to spend $500 billion. If you get elected to the Board of Supervisors, will you try to get us out of SCAG?
SCAG is being, basically it's, so the way it's created, I believe, is you have elected officials that are like city council members that are then appointed to become representatives based on geography. And so when the housing, so some of the votes they take, I think there's 98 members or something, and their votes are like 98 to nothing. So when there's a board where the votes are 98 to nothing,
You're not
then to me, the board's worthless. I don't care what they're voting on, or if they're always voting the same monolithically, then that means there's nothing, there's no thought. So first of all, boards like that I think we should eliminate. But in terms of what they're trying to do with the housing, so SCAG is the one that is deciding, they're the ones that divvy up, so okay, yeah, the 1.5 million units need to be, and so many percent of that has to be low income and very low income units. And so then they say, okay, well, how much should each city get? So I think in the newspaper today, Manhattan Beach was saying that 400 low income units need to be in their city. I mean, why are you gonna put 400 low income units in Manhattan Beach? So what we really should be doing is we should ask the politicians like our assembly member and our senator to come to those cities and tell us where we're gonna put those units. You come up with a solution. You've mandated it. Not only should you pay for these things, but you should tell us how to do it. You know, quit leaving us with riddles that don't make any sense.
Well, something that goes along with that is what they call the living wage, which you have to pay construction workers. And I think like a carpenter, it's like $150 an hour.
So you wonder why these housing units for the homeless cost $800,000. It's because they put these, not only do they put the prevailing wage on top of everything, but they also have many times, well, it's always, you have to hire union members to do this. Even the proponents that are liberals, that are proponents of housing, say you shouldn't be putting all these union requirements because it doubles the price.
Yeah, everybody does.
So it's just the whole common sense things. I mean, there's so many issues that come to my mind when I think of the unions and the environmentalists being together in one party. Like, it doesn't even, somebody said, like the unions, they want as many jobs, high-paying jobs as they can, and the environmentalists don't want to have anything built. How do those two even see eye to eye? They want to use CEQA to destroy projects left and right through the legal system. So terrible. Other questions?
Well, I have to do, the cities are bound by the Sacramento. And the Sacramento comes down with the law that you, in order, you have, all these cities have to change their general plan, what is it, every 5 years or so? And if they don't do it and put in these other requirements, you know, on you know, is it Rena that puts out these numbers on cities?
It's the Regional Housing Needs Assessment, and they call
Yeah.
it RENA.
Rena, yeah. Well, anyway, a lot of time, many times they're very wrong. They're out.
Well, actually, I think Orange County,
But
has,
anyway,
says it's
if they
wrong.
don't do it, then they don't get any California taxpayer money, the city.
Oh.
See, so
That's
they
the game that they
force,
play.
this is the game.
They use our money against us.
Exactly.
Absolutely, yes.
So just curious, are any other supervisors running, and are there any other conservatives running against them? Or is it just
I believe
Janet?
I believe Holly Mitchell is up for election. I don't know.
Yeah.
anything
We
else
can
about
get
it.
rid of her ass?
Well,
she's
somebody
the
asked
best
me to
of the
move
group.
there, I said, I'm not gonna.
That's the sad part, she's
Where's
the
the-
best
what-
of the five.
You're
What territory is
kidding.
Holly
No,
Mitchell?
oh, not Holly Mitchell, no, I'm thinking of the other.
Barger. I think she's
Right
up for
now, there
election.
isn't any,
Yeah, Barger.
right now, Gary, what he's saying is there isn't any right now that he knows, right?
Not running against Holly
Right.
Mitchell. She
Oh.
represents the South Bay.
Yeah, she's no
Yeah.
good, you're right, yeah, I was.
Yeah.
Do you have another question?
I do. I actually have two, but I'll spread it out. I'm not going to bogart. But the second question I have is immigration tying in with public safety. We've had a sheriff, the previous sheriff, I mean, he got a lot better towards the end, but he said, I'm not going to work with ICE or federal officials to deport illegals out of our county. What can you do as a supervisor to restore public safety, to get these illegals out? What can you do? What do you want to do when you get on the board?
Certainly, I don't agree with any type of sanctuary, county, city, or state. So that's the first thing. Right. So I actually supported Sheriff McDonald when he was running for re-election. I was not for Villanueva when his first term. And one of the reasons was what you just mentioned, that he said he wasn't going to work with ICE. He said if they come to our courts, I'm not going to be working with them. And I even asked him that after he won his election. I said hi to him. I was at an event. I said, you're really not going to work with our federal officers? And he said no. So because he said that, he was so firm with me, I really couldn't really support him in this last election, just because I think that we should always be working with Homeland Security and ICE and all of them. It shouldn't be an us versus them. When Gavin Newsom and his sanctuary state statements that he makes are just ludicrous. I mean, he seems to think that he's writing the laws. All he is supposed to be doing is enforcing the laws. He doesn't have a right to pick and choose which laws he's enforcing. It's just like the death penalty. He doesn't like the death penalty, so he doesn't do the death penalty. And that's not right. Oh, so what can I do as a supervisor? So first of all, I would be requesting that our sheriffs are working with our federal partners in crime. I don't think we should be allowing people that are illegal immigrants here in this country to be roaming free. They should be deported. Period. Other questions?
Then you got another one, Art, go ahead.
I don't want to prevent anybody. Okay, so this is a more cynical question, sadly. So you're going to be, the county has changed considerably. You just pointed out we don't have Redondo or Manhattan or El Segundo anymore. So now it's Huntington Park. Paramount's still there. I don't know the other, but Janice Hahn's dirty. She's a dirty politician. What she did to Napolitano in 2016, it was Trump, 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 24/7. And whether he's the nominee or not, this is not against or for Trump, but how are you going to deal with that? Because I felt like Napolitano just kind of said nothing, did nothing. There has to be some kind of a proactive response. Or if it's DeSantis or any Republican, she's going to try to nationalize them.
You're going to like my answer.
So tell me, yeah.
Okay, so those of you that remember my campaign from 2017, that was the height of Donald Trump, right?
Sure.
So I was walking door to door, and I knew that they were either Democrats or Republicans when I walked to their door, but they were hypersensitive, I'm knocking on their doors. And I would have people just come out just guns a-blazing about Donald Trump being the devil. And I never once said to people a lie. I always said I'm a Republican and I support Donald Trump.
Okay.
Period. And if people wanted to have an argument about it, I would have an argument. I think the key is that we can't back down from the Democrats anymore.
Right.
We got to stand up to them. Because if you don't stand up to him and proactively say, I supported him, I might not like everything he did. I didn't like everything Ronald Reagan did. I mean, nobody's perfect. But I agreed with the things he was doing. And I certainly, as hell, don't agree with what President Biden's doing. If you're gonna use President Biden as someone up against whoever the Republican is, good luck to you. I mean, he is horrible.
It sounds to me you've won and you didn't even have a challenger, so it sounds like there were some Democrats you engaged with who still voted for you.
Absolutely.
That's a good sign then. Okay,
No,
great.
absolutely. I think that
Okay.
I think people respect someone that fight for them, and that's what I do. On the city council, I always tell people I don't have a vote until I hear from everyone. I listen to every argument, and I make my decision based on what's best. I think if people at the end of the day think about that and know that I am a Republican, and I'll never say I'm not, I'll just say I'm a Republican. I always admit that.
Good.
Why would I back down from that? It's a lie to back down from that. It's a lie to myself. But at least if I tell people that, and then I say, okay, we've gotten past that, what are your issues? And they start talking to me, I think they're gonna find that they're gonna be heard, and we're gonna have a good dialogue, and I'm gonna help them find a solution. I'm not gonna just jam my solution down their throat. That's not right. That's not how politicians should be. That's why we all hate politicians. And we're just so hateable, right? So, anyhow, that's it.
David Hadley should have taken your advice then. He should have followed your pattern.
David-
I don't want to bring, you don't have to
We brought
comment,
it
but
up now.
yeah.
Why even say it?
yeah,
That's-
but it's worth pointing out.
Yeah.
That's the right way to approach it.
Yeah,
I
I
appreciate
didn't
that.
follow Steve Napolitano's campaign, and of course I wanted him to win. But I think sometimes I think we can't be afraid. I mean, if we're afraid, then they see the weakness in you and they just destroy you.
Wow, that's refreshing.
You know, I think it's just best to say who you are and let the chips fall. And if some people, you're never going to win them over. Some people, surprisingly, I sat at their door for 15, 20 minutes. All of a sudden, I had a new voter. Someone that hated me when they first answered the door. I had one, actually the best story I have, I told this a few times, that one guy came up and he looked all angry and he said, "Who'd you vote for?" And I actually didn't look at the walk sheet, so I wasn't really sure. I said, "I voted for Trump." He's like, "Go get 5 signs." So he had this beautiful house, a corner house. He put 5 of my signs at his house.
Okay.
So that was nice.
Oh, okay. Okay.
That turned out well.
I want to tell you, I had a chance to help Mike, what's his name?
Mike Griffiths?
No,
What's that?
up in Santa Clarita.
Oh, Garcia.
Mike
Garcia, okay.
Anyway, he's in a purple, it got more purple with distribution. But, anyway, he had to, most of the voters were registered Democrats, so they had to reach out to those voters. And so he had a strategy for that, and his campaign did a great job. He went on to talk at least to his campaign manager,
Well, and you have to have a strategy for different groups, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
this group.
But they just kind of changed their talking points. They knocked on all the doors. They didn't knock just on Republicans.
Yeah, I mean, you need to know your audience. I think any performer, we become performers as politicians. You know, you got to get in front of people and you got to make them feel comfortable that I trust that person. My strategy still is going to be to come up with the key issues that I believe that the majority of people, the benchmark poll might be interesting. It might find that the northern part of the district has these 4 issues and the southern part has these other 4 issues. So if that's the case, I'm not going to just be stupid and talk about the issues that are important to the southern part with the northern and vice versa. I'm going to be smart about that. But I'm going to really work to not say my opponent's name, which will be hard, but I'm going to really work to do that. And I'm going to really work to stay as nonpartisan as possible. You guys know I'm a Republican. You know where my heart is in terms of what I believe in and the Constitution and freedoms and all that. But some people, I don't necessarily need to say that. You know, actually, that message should be for every American. It's not just a Republican issue. That those items, freedom and the love of America, is for everyone. Yes?
And I'm glad to hear you say that, because one of the things I hate is watching negative campaigning, where the candidate that's running, all they do through their ads is say the name of their opponent.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, voters are stupid. They go into a voting booth and they say, oh, Janice Hahn, I heard that name a lot, that's who I'm gonna vote for. And I think that's how a lot of people lose
Low
their
information
elections,
voters.
because instead of just saying what they're about, they keep saying how bad their opponent, John Doe, is, and all people know is, I heard John Doe's name, that's who I'm gonna vote for. So, you're writing that, do not do that, don't mention her name at all. Don't give her any more publicity than she gets.
I would emphasize, when you're talking to people, just ask a question. How can things be done better? What's important to you? Okay, how can things be better? How can things be improved? Maybe you can build upon that as a dialogue as far as, when they stop and think about it, well, what happened in the past, and they don't want to repeat in the past, you might not have to actually state it, but just say, how can things be improved from what you've seen so far, and you might get positive reinforcement.
Very good, Randy.
Thank
Very
you.
good.
Great question.
We've reached almost to the end. I have just one question. What are the top 3 issues that you will stand for that will grab their attention?
God.
I'm killing you.
Well, I had to do my benchmark point. The top 3 issues that I think I probably always will mention. I feel very strongly about the pressures that we've had in terms of inflation. I feel like inflation is the root of so many bad things amongst us. So I feel that's one. I feel like as a county supervisor and having so much knowledge about infrastructure as a civil engineer, I think I have an obligation to talk about better transportation and quit throwing money down the rat hole at Metro.
Oh, wow, what a waste.
I think that's important. So I'll probably always mention that. I kind of like the open question idea that was given about what is it that you feel is important to you.
What Randy said?
Yeah, no, I like what Randy said, because I think sometimes you give audiences the opportunity to say kind of what's on their minds, and then you can address it. I feel like I should be prepared for all of that.
Yeah.
And so I kind of like that too, like having an open mind to bring in that sort of issue as well.
She won't debate you anyway, will she?
Well, probably not. But I guess if I never mention her name, and I get my name out there a hell of a lot more than her.
My opponent, just say my opponent, won't debate me.
Right. I'm planning on getting a lot of press. I'm going to put out a lot of ideas and issues that I think will be thought-provoking. And whether it's not the mainstream media, but I think there's enough of the rest of it and of what we can do with virtual, with AI and other different techniques they're using now. I think we can get the message out there.
John Phillips, KBC Talk Radio, who comes on
He'd be a
noon,
great person.
he is always open.
Oh,
to
he's
having-
good, yeah.
having
John and
these
Ken?
candidates.
No, John
No,
Phillips.
John Phillips. Start talking to him now. He will have you on there now.
Are you gonna go
Very
to
good.
the
Just real
Bakersfield
quick,
convention?
was Sandy Wilson White, when you mentioned Mike Garcia,
Yeah.
you know the lady that exposed the corrupt politician that was Jennifer Van Laar?
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Okay. Jennifer Van Laar is someone who likes our group, came here and spoke last year. And that is someone that you will have to get in touch with at some point, maybe through Mike Knitter or through yourself or through anybody else.
Netter probably knows.
And she will back you up with your decision to run against Janice Hahn. She's extremely conservative and she's a wonderful lady. What's that?
One more.
Yes.
Okay, so I've given you, most of you, my business card, which has all the traditional address, phone number, all that. On the back though, this is kind of, instead of the remit envelopes, you could use your smartphone and it brings you right to the donation page. So if you have an opportunity to give me a couple bucks, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, I want to be the first one here to give you a couple of bucks. Here you go.
Thank you.
All right. Everybody, let's give a successful hand for John Garcia.